Hi, I'm Kath. I'm the laboratory lead here at the wastewater treatment plant in New Plymouth. I've been here about 12 years, and today we're going to walk you through the oil and grease test. And the star of our film is Annie.
Hi, I'm Annie. I've been working here for a couple of years. Today I'm actually going to perform the testing to show you how the whole oil and grease has been done.
Okay, before we get started, I'll just give you a little bit of background to the test that we do. We do it according to the 21st edition of standard methods rather than the 23rd, and there's a couple of reasons for that. The 23rd edition requires a lot of quality control work that we don't have the time to do with the equipment and the space that we've got. So what we do is we do a hexane blank on every bottle of hexane before we use it. We do periodic duplicates of the sample, so we get Gary to collect a duplicate, bring it in to make sure the duplicates work. We participate in water check oil and grease tests, and we've got great records with all of that testing. And we also do comparisons with a commercial laboratory, for example, Hills Laboratory. So that just makes sure that everything we're doing and our method is comparable with what's expected from the 23rd edition. Okay, so now we'll make a move and we'll go and start the test for you. Right, we're at the sample collection stage. Now we collect the sample into wide mouth bottles. Now these have been pre-rinsed with hexane and dried. The wide mouth means that when we've filtered the samples, we can actually put a bit of hexane on filter paper and wipe the bottle, makes it easier. Behind it you can see we've got a splitting funnel. This is when we want to do duplicates, so Gary can take this out into the field, pour the sample in the top, and it splits off into the two bottles. And by doing a duplicate every quarter, we're adhering to the 23rd edition of the standard methods. These can be special. We got this one specially made in Christchurch to do the oil and grease test itself. Now you can't subdivide these samples when you bring them into the lab. If it's a really dirty sample, you would just collect less sample. But typically where Gary's collecting for us between 1 and 1.5 litres of sample. Right, so Annie's going to take the sample bottle now and wipe it down, and then what we do is weigh it and record that initial weight. So Annie's recording the weight of the sample in the book. Now we'll just quickly show you the book because we're going to be doing a lot of recording of weights. So we have an initial and a final weight in there. We'll be weighing the distillation glassware. Okay, now Annie's going to bring the sample over. We're going to add 5 mils of hydrochloric acid. This is going to acidify the sample and lower the pH to below 2. It's also important when she's done that to write that acid has been added onto the sample label itself. If we can't begin the analysis straight away, it can be left in the fridge. So by straight away, we start it within a couple of hours or pop it in the fridge overnight until we're ready to start. What Annie's just weighed out there is a filter aid. It's just like diatomaceous earth. So what we're going to do is mix that into a slurry, and that will form the base that will trap the oil and grease on top of it. So what Annie's doing here, she's adding the water to the filter aid to make a slurry. So for our samples, we typically have 3 filter papers. So she's pouring that solution into 3 filters, and we're going to filter that, start the filter and drain the water away, and that will compact the filter aid down into a hard base. Now we'll get our film producer just to go up so he can have a look down the funnel, and you can see that we've now got a firm base that we can filter the sample through. Now I'm going to pour the sample through, and she'll just distribute it evenly between the 3 filter papers. Now pouring it onto a spoon first just stops the pressure. and she'll just keep adding sample to those filters until it really slows down. Now, in some cases where we've had really dirty samples that take a long time to filter, you may end up running 6 filters, so you'll have 6 lots of filter aid. What that's doing, the liquid's going through and any oil and grease is being trapped on top of that base. It's completed filtering, so what we're left now is just all the oil and grease either on the glassware, as you can see, or on the filter aid medium. So what Annie will do now is dismantle everything, wash everything down with the hexane and pop the thimble, everything into the thimble so that we can reflux it. So it's a bit of a delicate act. She's going to roll that filter paper up so that all the mediums contained remains inside it, and then fold it and pop it into the thimble. There we go. And as with the beauty of film, she's popped that one in, and we'll just stop it there and we'll rejoin in a minute. Okay, so now Annie's got some hexane in a bottle there. She's just wetting down a filter paper, and she uses that to actually wipe the glassware. So everything that she wipes off will be contained on that filter paper, and that filter paper will be added to the thimble. Okay, now all the glassware's clean, so she's just going to clean the sample bottle. And that's just getting any oil and grease that's still on the inside of the glass bottle onto that filter paper, which that too will be added to the thimble. And just while she lays the thimble there, she's going to put the lid back on the bottle, and we go and weigh the empty bottle now. That's part of the calculation. So writing that empty weight back in the book, and we're ready for the next step. We've got our thimble ready to go, so we're going to take that down to the oven, pop it in the oven for 1.5 hours, 103 plus or minus 1 degree. Note that standard method says 30 minutes in the oven, but we did an extensive investigation and found that we needed to extend it to 1.5 hours to ensure that there's no water carryover into the refluxing apparatus. And also be aware that compounds volatilized at or below 103 will be lost when the filter is dried. So what Annie's doing now is she's taken the receiving base out, and it's been dried, passing it through an anti-static device and weighing it on the balance. And then she'll record that weight in the book. The reason for that, it just stops any of the filter aid getting into the hexane itself. It keeps everything within the thimble. So now we've just pre-measured out some N-hexane. So she's got 170 mils of hexane, which she's going to add to the flask, and then we'll start it refluxing. SOX lid, glassware that she's just popped that thimble into, and pop a condensing coil on top. And what we end up doing is we turn the power on and heat the mantle up, and that'll start the hexane evaporating. It moves up, hits the condensing coil which cools it down, and it distills back through, and it drops through the thimble and it absorbs any of the oil and grease into the N-hexane, drops down to the receiving flask, and that process keeps going for 4 hours. Now it's set, the temperature is set to do 20 cycles per hour, which is quite critical. So we've marked on the heating mantle exactly what temperature we need to achieve for 20 cycles per hour. And just another thing that's a good thing to note, on our cooling coil we've got little taps attached where you can see a little, like a butterfly flicking around, and that just makes sure that you can see the water flowing the whole time. So you can see the hexane's been boiling at the bottom, it's been evaporating, hitting the condensing coil, dripping back into the thimble, and if you can see here we've got a siphon, and you'll see there it is, it's just emptied all the hexane out of the thimble, it's trickling down and back into the receiving vessel. So once it's done that first cycle, we'd start our timer for 4 hours. Now that's going to continue sending that, refluxing that hexane up and back for 4 hours, and the whole time the oil and grease is being absorbed into the N-hexane. Right, so we're just pretending now that our sample has been refluxing for 4 hours, and Annie will dismantle it. So she'll tip any remaining hexane, drain that into the bottom receiving flask. Right, now we bring the N-hexane with all the oil and grease absorbed into it over to a water bath. Now this is set at 85 degrees, and what's going to happen now is we are going to distill off the hexane. So that will oil go across, down the condensing coil and into another bottle, and what we do is we reuse that hexane, and all that will be left in the receiving flask is the oil and grease, which can have either a clear sort of white lines, it can be, if it's got lots of oil and grease, it'll be a yellowy colour, even a black colour. And then we'll be drying that flask and weighing it back as well. Right, as you can see, we've wrapped the distillation glassware in tin foil. That just keeps the heat in, so it makes it distill a little bit faster. And you can see now that we've got the hexane is distilling off the other end, and we'll reclaim that hexane and distill it again to purify it, and then we can reuse it in the test if it passes the blank checks. Right, so now it's finished distilling, so Annie's going to dismantle the glassware. So we wipe the outside of the glass just to get rid of any residue that may have been in the water bath. And what she's doing now is just sucking off any hexane fumes. So you just be very careful that you don't touch the vacuum pipette to the glass. You don't want to suck off any oil. So it's purely fumes. Just popping a little bit of acetone on the bottom of the glassware, that gets rid of any residue from the water bath. I'm just going to turn around, pop it in the drying oven, and the drying oven's set to 50 degrees, and it just sits in there for half an hour, and that's just getting rid of any moisture on the glassware. So it's been half an hour, so now Annie's taking the glassware out to pop it in the desiccator, and it'll stay in the desiccator for 2 hours to come to normal room temperature and be nice and dry. So she's just vacuuming the desiccator itself. Right, and we'll be back in 2 hours to do the final weighing. Through the anti-static device, into the balance, and that becomes our final weight. And then all we need to do now is the calculation to determine how much oil and grease is there. The glassware at the finish is just rinsed in soapy water and dried, and we can put a little bit of hexane in it, which will take off any oil and grease from the glassware itself, and then it's dried in the oven for reuse.
So now we're doing the calculation. So first we're using the bottle and sample weight to minus the empty bottles, which is give us the sample weight. And on this side, we have the receiver after with the sample weight and the empty weight. So we're using the after minus the before, giving us what's the oil and grease inside the receiver. And then we're using the oil and grease weight divided by the sample weight to convert into the oil and grease. Fourteen is the whole number.
So 35 grams per metre cubed. Right, so we're finished with the distillation process. And you'll dismantle that glassware. Stop there for a second. Okay, so here we have the sample. It's been completely filtered through now, and we're just left with oil and grease sitting on the Filtrete medium and up the sides of the glassware. So now Annie's going to show us how to clean up the glassware and ensure everything goes into the thimble.